Shalom, my little friends. Okay, so just recently we had a sacrifice that happened in Israel, and I say we because the earth just had a sacrifice, an abomination happen on the earth. It's interesting to me that not very many people are speaking about this in the manner of bringing up Bible verses to try to figure out what prophecies have been fulfilled here, because there's more going on here than just the days of Noah. There's more going on here, But I'm gonna let y'all listen to this, and then we'll talk about it.
Of olives. Hopefully we're going to have a sacrifice for the covenant of Noah, to renew the covenant of Noah, the Noahide covenant between all of mankind.
That's what I get.
And the all of mankind and God. Just to fill you in, things don't always go according to plan. They had brought in a man who was trained in slaughtering non-Jew, and at the very last minute, I'm not sure why, but he canceled. And so what happened was, Rav Hillel Weiss was running around. What do you do when the person who's supposed to present the sacrifice doesn't show up? So I was walking around, and there were a lot of very, very, very special people here, each one glowing special in his own way. And there was one amazing young man named Malki, not so young, amazing young man, and dresses Jewish, looks Jewish, and I happened to catch him this morning. He was in his way to the mikveh, the ritual bath, which is a Jewish thing to do. And for some reason, I don't ask me, it wasn't, I don't know why. But I walked up to him and I asked him, are you Jewish? And he said, well, according to your standards, no. And so that meant that he could be the representative for all of the non-Jews in the world. Because this sacrifice can absolutely not be Jewish. Our covenant and all of mankind has their covenant. And I asked him, do you know how to slaughter an animal? And he said, I've done it 4 years in a row. And he said, would you be willing to do this one? And he broke down in tears. And he said, I've had dreams all week that I would be doing this. And I reminded him that you can only serve God in happiness. And priests who were in mourning were not allowed to give sacrifices. So all of humanity is counting on Malki to be in joy, to bring the sacrifice for all of humanity to renew its covenant with God from the time of Noah. And hopefully that's what's going to take place if no one else... nothing else happens. And actually, the knife is on the way in a taxi cab, because you need a knife, and that's what we're doing. But more important is the person. The knife is not as important as the person. And also, the goat is on the way here. And again, I'd like to emphasize that this is not a sin offering, and it's not a replacement for anything in any other religion. This is a covenant offering, a Thanksgiving offering, and brought in happiness. And only between non-Jews and God. And the reason why Jews cannot take part is we have a commandment that the only place we are allowed to bring sacrifices is on the temple. Non-Jews do not have the commandment, so they can bring sacrifices anywhere to God. So we have to wait until the government lets us go up to the Temple Mount. And then as soon as they let us, everything is ready for us to bring our sacrifices. So we're going to have to follow the non-Jews on this one. Should all be blessed. Hopefully it'll work out. We need your prayers to make sure it works. Thank you.
So, look what we have there. We have a Jewish ceremony of a sacrifice of a goat, not a lamb, a goat. And this goat had to be sacrificed by a Gentile. A Gentile. Y'all, I mean, this is just my personal opinion, and I really feel like that it is Jesus, Yahushua, that is talking to me about this. But I think this is fullness of the Gentiles. The more and more that this stuff is coming out to be, I watched a video where a rabbi, he was sitting there in Israel, and everybody was walking by him, and he was giving everybody an American $1 bill, telling them be blessed and charity, and giving them an American $1 bill. Why an American $1 bill? He was getting little Israel or Jewish boys American $1 bills. He was giving the cameraman, one of them looked Jewish, American dollar bill. Why American dollar bill? Because America is set up. America is their golden city. It was like considered the new Jerusalem. America was. That's what our new heaven is. That's what the new Jerusalem. In America, when it was set up, it's like all these nations come together and, oh yay, we have finally been able to build the city that we wanted to build, with all the buildings that match up just right, with huge land where we can build these buildings, specifically lined up with the stars all around, and we finally have our city that's set up on a hill that we can do our stuff, do the worship, the false god. That's why so much occultism. Disney has been around for a long time. A long time. If Disney has been around for a long time, and Disney is set up straight up for the occult, then it goes back further than that, and further than that. And the more research and the study that you get into, you start realizing you were lied to in schools. If you're an American and you went to American schools, you were lied to in schools. Yahushua wakes you up to realize that America ain't so great. That America is so much of a Freemason country that I can't believe we don't see it. We've just been completely blinded, fed that America's so great, and everybody wants to come here, and America's great, and we're not oppressed, and we don't have oppression, and you should go live in other countries so that you can see that there are women and stuff being beat all the time. And then let me tell you something, America is just as oppressed as they are. We just don't have the physical upon us. There are different types of abuse. You got physical, mental, emotional. There are several types of abuse. The other countries, they physically, mentally, and emotionally. Our country, emotionally, mentally, abuse us. But so much to the point where they don't have to whoop us. They don't have to beat us down. They do it through these phones. They do it through the television. They've been doing it for a long time. And now they're able to come together. The Jews are able to come out and bring this sacrifice. The Gentiles come into sacrifice. These things have to happen for prophecy to be fulfilled. I'm sorry I spoke when the guy was speaking. It's just sometimes it's like you listen to this stuff and I'm like, how do they... I used to be this person, not knowing what was coming out of my mouth, thinking that I knew something when I knew nothing. I read the Word of God now and I see that these things are wrong. And these things are wrong for us to partake in. They have to happen for prophecy to be fulfilled. It has to. But we have to understand what prophecy is. Prophecy is not a time limit. Prophecy is already written. Prophecy is it's just got to be fulfilled. Prophecy isn't a time. It's for an appointed time, but it doesn't happen over time. It's already happened. It's already been written. So the things that they are doing and fulfilling, it's not like that they just decided that, oh, we're going to do this. No, Yahusha, the Bible verse being changed now, but Yahusha in Ezekiel 38, he talks about that he will put the thought into Gog's mind to come against his children Israel. He's doing that. Yahusha is and because it's already been done. Like, we can't grasp outside of time. We just can't do it. But this is, no matter what we try to say, no matter what we know, what prophecies have been fulfilled here, we know for a fact that this is one of the things that Yahusha in Matthew 24 was speaking about. The days of Noah. They're trying to bring in the days of Noah. We're not here yet. We're not at the days of Noah yet. It's coming. This sacrifice that they did spiritually did something. Spiritually. I believe it even says in here that the smoke went up to the heavens. Ascended up to the heavens. After the ritual took place, the fire from the sacrifice burned smoke to the heavens as seen here. But this is the beginning of trying to get the days of Noah started. This is the enactment of them beginning the starting of the days of Noah. Yeah, they've signed all these papers. Yeah, they've made the spoken covenants. Yes, they have done these things under their buildings, their temples that they've built. You know, like Washington Capitol, the Jew that just mentioned the Noahide laws not too long ago. The Kabbalist Freemason. He literally made a covenant that day. There was one that outside dancing. They made a covenant that day with their false god. The same here. Well, after making that covenant that day, they made it in their capital city, their Babylonian city, the one that's going to bring their Mashiach in. They go and they have this sacrifice. Not too long after it. That was what, 2 months ago? Maybe 2 months ago? When they announced at the Capitol building, the Jew did. He read the prayer to the God of the universe, their false God, their false serpent God, and made this covenant with hell and death. They're fulfilling Amos. You know, they made a covenant with hell and death. They spoke it out loud. Well, then they had to go to the Mountain of Olives, where Yahushua Jesus ascended from, so that Lucifer can bring his own little butt up in here, okay? But they had to make the sacrifice then. They made the spoken covenant. They spoke it out loud. They did their little dances, their rituals, their prayers in their false god temple at the Washington Monument. And now at the Mount of Olives, they've had a Gentile specifically to do a sacrifice of an animal, when Yahushua Jesus was our last sacrifice. He was the last blood to be shed of any animals. It ain't happened yet. The days of Noah ain't happened yet. But they're here. They're manifesting. They're coming. It's coming. And this is it. See, it's a parable. You know, he brings up the parable of the fig tree. Now learn the parable of the fig tree. Alright? Heaven and earth shall not pass, but as the day no man knoweth, the angels of heaven only. But as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. So he's saying, as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. It's not, okay, the days of Noah are not going to happen until after Jesus' coming. He says, as in the days of Noah, also shall the Son of Man come. He's saying that as in the days of Noah, that's when it's going to be like the days of Noah, where they're sacrificing and they're speaking these prayers, and they're getting all these nations together. This coexist, where all the different religions come into one. It's worshiping their false serpent god, these Kabbalist Freemasons. They finally are able to come into one mind and give their kingdom to the beast. The sacrifice is a big deal. And it says, first sacrifice since days of Noah. That's what got my attention of this. Animal sacrifice to restore God's covenant. God's covenant. Now, did you notice in there that he said 2 covenants? The covenant with the Jews and the covenant with mankind. What are the Jews, not mankind? What do the Jews, are the Jews not people? Are the Jews not a person as well? This 2 covenant thing, there is no 2 covenant. There is no covenant with the Jews and a covenant with us. When Yahushua Jesus died on the cross, that was for everybody. It was for everybody. It wasn't just a covenant for us, as they say, the Gentiles. That's not. Do you know who the church is? The church of the Nazarene. The church of the Yahushua Jesus believers. The Nazarene can be of the stock of Benjamin, Zebulun, whatever, and the other nations. And still that one's perplexing, because you've got in Psalms where it talks about, that he has chose Jacob for, Jacob is his chosen, and Israel is his peculiar treasure. The house of Jacob is his chosen, and the house of Israel is his peculiar treasures. The thing is that's only 2 houses, and not once does it bring up Gentiles. Did you know that Gentiles isn't mentioned but maybe 3 times in the Old Covenant, the Old Testament, until you get to Isaiah? Then that's when the Gentiles start being brought up. Isaiah. So, and the Gentiles are the isles of Japheth. Ham had 3 sons. Noah had 3 sons. Japheth was one of his sons. And it says literally in the lineage of Japheth, he's got Gog, Tubal, Mesech, Togomar, Gomer, Tyrus. He's got these specific ones that are named in his lineage, and right before his lineage ends, it says, "And these are the house of the Gentiles that were divided." It's in Genesis chapter 10. Look it up yourself, please. And then when you get over to Ezekiel 38, you have him talking to Gog, and all these are brought up. Gog, the chief prince of Mesech and Tubal. Well, there's Mesech again. Well, there's Gomer. There's Togomar. He brings all these, Tarshish, which is another name of one of Japheth's sons. Once again, we have these names being repeated, and this is Gog and Magog. This is the ones, and so. Who are the isles of the Gentiles? Who are the Gentiles? The Gentiles are not what the churches in America, at least in Tennessee, they're not what the churches teach us. That's not who the Gentiles are. The Gentiles are not the churches, or the church. The Gentiles are not the church. I repeat, the Gentiles are not the church. Because if that was the case, then the children of Ham and the children of Shem would be excluded from being in the church. If you get the Holy Wind, Breath, and Spirit of Yahushua, the Ruach HaKadosh, you are the church. That's what that is. So you can be a Jew or of the other nations. I've never understood it, and I still don't till this day, of this whole separation, this dividing. In Jesus' lineage, you got 5 women in Matthew, and all 5 women come from another nation. They were not of an Israelite. They were not born of Israel. Abraham, the father of all nations, he was born of the land of Ur. He was not an Israelite. All of us, every single person, was born from Adam and Eve. So this whole dividing thing, I just don't understand. but they have Gentiles, the other nations, that just did a sacrifice on the Mount of Olives. There's a significance here. Why is a rabbi sitting in Israel and passing out $1 bills for charity to Jews? American $1 bills. They're more connected than what we think. I think that this fullness of the Gentiles has been being, coming into play way longer than we can imagine. It's interesting. I was going to talk about it, but I just don't. I don't think that I trust myself to believe that it's the Holy One, Breath, and Spirit speaking through me, because this is such a big subject that you got major battles. There are two subjects that I will not speak about, and that is the olive tree and the rapture, because it is such a battle to talk about these two things. You got so many battles of who the Gentiles are and who's saved, and talking about this adoption thing, and like who's the church, and woo, it'll give you an anxiety attack. And then you got the subject on the rapture, and who's going to be carried away, and are we going to be carried away, and no, I'm right, and this one's right, and here's this Bible verse, and I've got proof right here. You can't get anybody in a room discussing these subjects without a battle. My question has always been, my thought process has always been, how in the world are we adopted if we are from one God, one Yahushua, one Father? We were all born from Him. How are we all adopted if Eve's name means the mother of all living? How are we all adopted if Jerusalem is called the mother of us all? How are we all adopted? We, as the Gentiles, what churches in America teach, well, at least in Tennessee, what churches in Tennessee teach is that the Gentiles are the ones that have been adopted. They've been grafted in. We're the one that we've been adopted. Well, how is that when Paul himself, Paul from the stock of Benjamin, from the tribe of Benjamin, says himself, we all wait for the adoption. Something ain't right. Something ain't right. Okay? The word adoption don't have nothing to do with that word in the concordance. Do your own research, do your own studies on it, but it don't have nothing to do with being born from somewhere else and being given to another father, another mother or father, more parent, another set of parents. That's what adoption is. That's what we on earth define adoption as, is that you were born from another family and you're adopted, you were given to another one because this family does not want you, or something happens and they can't have you. I won't say it like that because that's not fair. But all I'm saying is we were all born, Noah's children populated the whole earth when they came out of the flood, the ark. So we were all born from these we're all from the same, father. This adoption, it's just these subjects. But it's interesting how Romans chapter 11 brings up the olive tree and the Gentiles. Fullness of the Gentiles. Revelation chapter 11 brings up the olive tree, and the Gentiles will tread under the holy city underfoot for 40 and 2 months. There are no coincidences with our King, our Father, our Holy Creator. There are no coincidences in His Word. He repeats Himself for a reason. That's not a coincidence. That's not a coincidence. In the same chapter, and it don't even matter that they're both from chapter 11, or they're both from a book that is with the letter R. It don't even matter. What's interesting is both chapters speak of the olive tree and the Gentiles, and not just the Gentiles, but the fullness of the Gentiles that will tread under the holy city. The holy city will be tread underfoot for 40 and 2 months. The Gentiles are given this.
it says in Revelation chapter 11, verse 1 and 2. There's no coincidences. There's more going on here. There's just more going on here. So, it's not the Gentiles that the Jews hate. It's the Nazarene, the ones that believe in Yahushua, Jesus. That's what the Jews hate. They pray 3 times a day against the Nazarene. Not the Gentiles. They don't pray 3 times a day against the Gentiles. That's not who they have to war against. That's not who the spirits that are ruling them, the fallen angels that are operating the Jews, that's not who they have to war against. They don't have to war against the Gentiles. They got to war against the Nazarene, the Yeshua, the Yahusha believers, the ones that believe that Yahusha come and died on the cross for their sins, that believe that the Mashiach has already been here, already come, and he is going to come again. That's the ones they pray against, not the Gentiles. So the church is not the Gentiles. The children of Japheth are the Gentiles. These are the isles of the Gentiles that have been divided. So there's something more going on. Something more going on. He brings up these houses. I would love y'all's comments and understanding, because they're, these are mysteries. And he does say in Romans chapter 11, he says, this is a mystery. He talks about the olive tree. So no wonder it is a huge battle. And also, when he's talking about the rapture and the last trumpet and the mysteries. These are the mysteries. This is a mystery. So this is one of the reasons why there are so many battles. But we're not supposed to be debating this stuff like this. We're supposed to be waiting upon the Holy Wind, Breath, and Spirit. And listening to him, not trusting in our own opinion, not trusting in our own words, reading ourselves and asking for the guidance of the Ruach HaKadosh to lead us and show us. Because y'all, my whole life going to church, I was in 17 foster homes in 4 years. I went to so many churches. I have heard that word adoption. I've never understood it. I was in foster care myself. How are we adopted from a different father? How? And when he brings up, when he woke me up, Yahusha woke me up one day, helping me to see that even Paul prayed and said, all of us waiting for the adoption. He helped me right then, showed me that it is not the Gentiles. That the adoption ain't got nothing to do with the Gentiles. Nothing. We're all waiting and groaning. The whole earth, I believe he says. The whole earth. Even so when we were children, were being bondage under the elements of the world. But when the fullness of the time was come, Yahuwah sent his Son, made of a woman, made under the Torah, the law, to redeem them that were under the Torah, that we might receive the adoption of sons. Ephesians 1:5, having predestined us into the adoption of children, by Yahuwah the Messiah, to himself according to the good pleasure of his will. Us. Look, that's Paul. He's speaking of us. Romans 8:22 and 23. Oh, and the first one I read was Galatians 4:3-5. And so Romans 8:22-23. For we know that that the whole creation groaneth and travaileth in pain together until now. And not only they, but ourselves also, which have the first fruits of the Ruach, the Spirit, even we ourselves groan within ourselves, waiting for the adoption, to wit, the redemption of the whole our body. Redemption of our body. This is Paul speaking, and he's saying the whole creation groaning. But he's saying even we, with the Ruach HaKadosh, the Nazarene, even we are waiting for the adoption. So there's something just ain't right being taught in the American churches. Just nope. But this right here, this is very important. This is a big thing that just happened. Specifically, the amount of olives on the Mount, and here we are, olives. Interesting. So specifically on the Mount of Olives, they burn a sacrifice after how many years? 2,000 something years. Since Yahushua Jesus died on the cross, was sacrificed on the cross, they've waited all this time, and now they've done this. I'm telling you, there's no coincidences. They made a covenant in Washington, D.C., and all of a sudden they're over here making a sacrifice in the Mount of Olives. There's something going on. There's something going on. Please do research and pray about this. Ask Yahushua to bless you with understanding and discernment and revelation and wisdom, his spiritual revelation and wisdom, while we're reading through his word. Find these Bible verses. Let him show you what prophecies are being fulfilled here, because there's more going on here than what meets the eye. We've been twisted by these teachings, and something ain't clicking. You know. Y'all bless the name of Yahushua. Thank you so much.
I never figure out how to get this thing stopped.